Welcome back to Hostmatic. My name is Matt, and the goal of this channel, of course, is to help people with short-term rentals to grow their business in the context of marketing. I'm going to try to bring you some useful information today to help you formulate maybe some new plans for 2022. And we're going to be looking at the 2021 hospitality report from Hostfully. So Hostfully is a PMP or a property management platform, and they provide all of the services you would expect from larger providers like, OTA connections, price syncing, calendar integrations, communications, so on. So huge shout out to Hostfully for putting this report together and using their proprietary data to do so. It's really great that they're open to sharing this kind of information. It helps all of us. And I'm going to leave a link to download the full report from Hostfully that you see on the screen here. Really great to take a look at, whether you're a provider, maybe you're a software guy and you're developing, or gal, and you're developing like a platform, or you're interested in getting into business on the software side. And of course, if you're a host and so on, there's information for everybody in there from their users. So I'm going to try to unpack this report into useful, my own take on useful but compartmentalized, and see what information it provides us so that we can, take a look at what everyone's doing and how to move forward in the industry for 2022. Okay. So if I sift through the executive summary here, I've highlighted a couple of important takeaways right off the bat. Digital nomads fled to the countryside and booked record-setting long-term stays. So anyone that basically had a cabin or glamping or anywhere by the beach was overall the most booked type of destinations in 2021, and they were local, especially people that could work from remote destinations, and the stays were longer as well. So it's one of the ways that hosts were able to increase revenues with those longer duration stays. If we go down, it says here, guests, many of whom hadn't traveled in over a year, booked accommodations and expected perfection. This placed an incredible amount of strain on guest services and cleaning staff. Why? Because it's hard to find people right now, particularly cleaning, as we'll get into a little bit more in the report, but that was listed as the primary hurdle in 2021 for hosts, especially as cleaning services needed to be stepped up. And it also relates to some upsells that were used as well. From a marketing perspective, if you can find and target people that are entrepreneurs or are able to work from home essentially, and if you could target those people in your marketing efforts and your marketing copyright, you should do so. And if you're an investor, for example, perhaps you would be looking more towards rural beach destinations, as they may be pandemic proof, at least a lot more than some other types of getaway destinations or properties. So one other thing that was noticed in the report overall is that the investors bought more property. So more property was bought in 2021 to 2020, and a lot of this was investors. They were seeking out property management. So that has some to do with the revenue growth that people saw was actually those outside investors hiring these management companies to go out and rent their investment properties. So the summary also says that guest expectations went up, that being like cleaning services, communication, and I think part of the whole environment we're in, a little bit of that is just people's expectations are going up, some reasonable, some unreasonable, but that was felt at least with the respondents of the surveys here. So staff is down, as we mentioned. We'll get more into the upsells further along, but essentially a lot of the upsell services were related to cleaning and COVID type of things, but there was a lot of partnerships lost or unavailable because of closures. And so hosts look for ways to provide more services where they can for upsells. So another takeaway here, technology was the biggest asset to growth for most hosts, and basically because it ties into booking, the management, and the pricing and everything else that you need to sort of streamline the business, which is what they're for, as a convenience factor, and focus on the things that you need to focus. I mean, if you have to spend 50% more time on cleaning or finding staff, you want to spend less time on technology and managing communications and those sort of things. So we saw a huge increase in people looking for integrated technology. This could also be huge opportunities for service providers, and not only the PMPs to add things to their existing platforms, but for new service providers to come in and find opportunities in the market, and there are some. The other takeaway here, lastly, was the upsells not working well, which I alluded to earlier. So you may want to find specific targeting for occasions. Now, upsells, the respondents were up and down. Some worked, some didn't work, mostly with the larger providers. But really what happened, again, as I said, the partnerships that most people would have kind of went down because venues are closed, and finding tours and things like that has been difficult. Whereas some people were able to do upsells. We'll talk about that in a second, what's really been working for people. But the mains are check-in, checkout flexibility. That's been number one, and mid-stay cleaning has been number two to try to make up those revenues. And depending on, the responses were sort of, if we go to page 35, we'll see there's an 11% increase in revenue over non-upsellers that reported 20% or more gains. So any category, whether it's 5 and under properties, 5 to 50 and 50 plus, the ones that reported a 20% gains overall had an 11% increase in upsales over people that did not upsell. So it's working. If it's an 11% difference in revenue, I mean, crunch the numbers, but 11% can be a significant gain or win. Okay, now let's go down to the reports. So competition is reported as up, and this goes back to what I said about the investors coming in, and a lot of investors came in, bought properties, and then put them out onto the market. 61% noted some increase in competition, 27% reporting a lot more. So although there was more competition reported in 2019, it seems that the people that did respond that said there was more competition, it's got to be a lot of that to do with the new investors. But also, if you were in a rural or cottage type of environment, or near, not the beach because it's popular, but rural cottage, then all of a sudden everyone's trying to book a cottage or a rural destination. You're going to report that as being competition growing in your particular case. So if we go down to page 8, growth, the great rebound. So 84% saw revenue growth over 2020, but this is because significant losses were to be had in 2020. So 80% or 84% of, for example, nothing is an infinite times amount of growth. Low booking rates in 2020, etc. We're going to jump to page 11 and growth strategies. The industry responds to increased demand. People with under 5 units can really benefit, I think, from the automated tasks. As you can see here, not only was it increased rates, but everyone increased rates across the board. Dynamic pricing was a factor for under 5. And I don't know exactly what that is due to, because although it's something that will save you time, I feel like it works for the under 5 because the pricing might even go lower. So you might have been too high and then you got more bookings because dynamic pricing put your your rates down. That could be a factor. Maybe you were just on trend with that, but we will touch more on dynamic pricing and how it actually, if it works or not. So for smaller operators, if you free up time, you're going to improve your communications. You know, when you see the 50 plus guys, the least popular growth strategy was automated tasks because they were already automating. It's the best for 5 to all the way to 19. And the bigger guys added new properties. That was their number one growth strategy because, you know, even if you're at 50% occupancy and you're making X, you know that if you add another property, I mean, you've got a bulletproof formula maybe, and yes, you could probably leverage the existing properties you have and squeeze more out of them, but you know if you get another property, you've already got the data to show you what numbers you can expect to come in. So even if it's, you know, half of what you would like to do out of your properties, you know you're still going to get that sort of amount from getting additional properties, and then you can just crunch the numbers, and obviously it's feasible and profitable in this case, or they wouldn't be doing it. And the under 5, again, they'll struggle with task automation. Same with 5 to 19. Sometimes it happens really fast, especially if you're a property management company and you get a bunch of portfolios in, and then you're not sure, you know, you didn't have the time to set up technology. And I'm always a big proponent of technology. You can see that the big guys are crushing it. You'll see it more in these charts that it's their number one proponent, and so is direct bookings. But if you start mapping out your automated tasks now and getting your technology figured out, not only is it helping right away, but you can sort of anticipate in the future. And I'll do another video on that and how to kind of set yourself up properly to go down the path of technology. So also, one more thing to mention about the automated tasks is what hosts are doing. They're automating the check-in process. They're automating the you know, entries and exits, so smart locks and all this hands-off COVID-related stuff that we need to implement. But it also provides a convenience factor because, you know, the host doesn't have to be on site, and you know, all the key exchange and things like that. So those tasks are significantly helping. Same with maybe scheduling, cleaning, and so on. So page 13, we're going to talk about challenges in short-term rental management. Number 1 being technology. Again, so there's a huge opportunity for service providers and PMs and so on to take a look at this data and get this all figured out. Most PMPs have communications built in, so it's a matter of figuring out, you know, feedback from their customers, figuring out what people need over here. And a lot of the technology is strung together still, but what's important and what has been number 1, which is coming up, is third-party integration. So the ability to integrate your software platform that you use, your PMP or your OTAs or whatever it is, integrating with other people. And of course, the OTAs don't do that as a general rule of thumb. So that's why Hostfully and Guesty and those companies work very, very well. So issue number 1, technology. Issue number 2, turnover in cleaning, because there's no staff available. That was really hard. Also because the pent-up demand for the rural destinations and cottage, well, good luck finding a cleaner in those type of environments, especially if somebody wants to do, like, you can't even offer probably an upsell for mid-stay cleaning if you're already struggling to get a cleaner as is. So those operators will have to go and clean up themselves and tidy it up for the next guest. It's very time consuming. You know, also the biggest complaints from the respondents were when they could find cleaning, oftentimes it was very expensive because it's sort of, you want it, you know, you pay. Not only the challenges, but just the expenditure on marketing was down. Now, some of that is due to lack of time. A lot of people were busy, and doing other things like the extra cleaning and communication, so they spent less time on marketing. Other people would have spent all that downtime in 2020 really hashing out a marketing strategy and a plan, and I hope you did too. So those guys were ready to implement in 2021, which is part of the reason that, you know, the focus on marketing was down. Those are a couple of obvious reasons. Use the low tides to work on your marketing when you can. If you know, if you've got downtime, do it, because you can build off momentum, but you have to add coal if you'd like to keep the train going. Yeah, so under 50, really focused on, you know, everyone focused on technology, more direct bookings because people want their income to go up. They understand direct bookings are important. Drop at least, you know, sometimes 15% off the OTA fees. And then put a little more into marketing because, hey, how can we get more business here? Okay, so just to finish that, yep. So less than 50 users, really focus on marketing and expanding, and the PMs helped large hosts with communications. 32% said most valuable. So a large portion said that the platforms that they're using were integral, the ties in communications, etc. And I assume they'll become more reliant as the technology gets even better. The people are saying marketing got easier. Nothing was the easiest for short-term rental companies. Guest communications got easier. So some of this will be from technology. Some of this will just be streamlining processes. So take what you will from that. Let me jump down to page 26. Okay, the impact of property management platforms. Here's an interesting takeaway. PMP users had a 50% plus increase in revenue. Okay, 20% or more income change, 74%, 50% or more income change, 35%. So you can see here, using a PMP speaks for itself. Again, just to summarize, automating tasks, better communications, tying in communications together. I mean, this is all time saving, and it's providing a better guest experience. I mean, if you're slacking on your communications, you know, that's not going to work. Like any business, if you think in your head what you demand from companies when you go online and order something, or you go in the store, or you go to a hotel, I mean, we all know we expect really good service, we expect to be treated XYZ. And just getting quick responses. I mean, especially today on the internet, if you communicate with a brand or a company, getting a quick response, I still really am pleased with that when I can get a hold of somebody and get the answers quick, especially when you're traveling, you're frustrated, you don't know what you're doing, and you know, all that kind of stuff. You can see where the communication comes in. And even in the report, it was discussed that, you know, guest guides are really helping people with the communication, where to go, how to access things. Okay, so using the PMP is a surefire winner. Also, they tend to be bigger operators. I mean, they've got the cash, they've got more things to organize. 5+ properties with PMP use third-party apps. Okay, so plan ahead. And the reason they use third-party apps like Zapier is because whatever you're missing, you know, if Guesty ties with Zapier, if I can use, you know, Guesty and Zapier together, I can now, you know, talk to most all of my software out there. If you're not familiar with Zapier, Zapier.com, it's a way to integrate software with each other and communicate. You know, maybe I get an email and it goes into a spreadsheet, you know, automatically on Google and keeps track of XYZ. So here's something interesting. Let's go down to page 28 and we are gonna find the great debate. Is dynamic pricing worth it? And as you can see from this chart here, yes, it is, but it's a 4% increase over manual price setting. And the 5 to 50 plus hosts, twice as likely to report 40% plus revenue change. So I could see this as being sort of an obvious one, because when you're big like that, you don't focus necessarily on, you know, although it's revenue, you may not focus as much on your pricing strategies. And especially if you've got, units in different locations and different climates. There's a lot to take into account. So automating your pricing seems like a really smart idea, and I can see the 40% revenue change on that. However, on average, 4% increase over manual. If you're going to do dynamic pricing, or if you want to play around with it, may work better or worse. I mean, this is an aggregate. If you're a large operator, it seems like a no-brainer to automate those types of tasks. If you're any other type of operator, essentially I would focus maybe on the 4%. I would try it, but focus on the 4%. See what you're going to be paying for that service, and then see if that makes sense to you. So let's jump down to page 38. Some cool stuff down here. Multi-channel distribution and booking origins. So Airbnb remains the #1 booking platform for 5 and under units. It's 55% of all bookings for 5 and under, and 15% only is for direct. I would probably focus on trying to get more direct bookings if you're interested in making a little bit more money. I mean, 15% only. I'd like to see that jump up if I were you. Just be less and less reliant on Airbnb, but what can you do? You kind of have to be reliant a little bit, but depending on the size, you're gonna see here the big guys, they rely on direct bookings. Once you get over the hump, you can allocate that money to your marketing and advertising initiatives and getting those repeat customers back, and they'll go for the direct booking. So you can definitely focus on brand and trying to build that up as a personal goal. Page 40, managing guest public health concerns. The focus was on cleaning, smart locks, and guidebooks. So all those were, extremely important for automation and communication, and just eliminating a lot of these service provider opportunities. So I'll cover this in another video, but essentially what we can see here is if you're, again, a service provider, so marketing took the biggest hit over here was marketing, again, for the reasons we mentioned earlier, with probably the strategies being outlaid in 2020. If you are looking for some ideas to implement in existing software or start some sort of service-related business, the turnover and cleaning, that's the biggest problem here. It's a staffing issue. I don't know what's to be done. If you can get that figured out in the meantime, you will have this locked down, like I said, because really people were finding a hard time finding people and finding good people and at a reasonable rate. So if you can get that figured out ASAP, I would focus on that exclusively until you got it knocked out, and try to future-proof yourself as well. And the bigger operators will obviously have a leg up. I mean, they're going to struggle with the same thing, finding staff, just like all the other businesses are. However, they can afford to have someone full-time, and it's much more attractive usually to hire someone full-time than to say, hey, I've got a job for you, here and there. But 33, 35, I just want to go back and talk about the upsells. I talked about it a little bit earlier that the upsells here didn't have a huge impact on people's income. However, here were the main ones. Again, it's early check-in, check-out, mid-stay cleaning, local tours and activities fell after, and then people just couldn't find services to upsell, so they had to go with what they had on site, which is check-in, check-out, and mid-stays. And that didn't really have a huge effect, but for the stats I gave earlier on the bigger guys, that revenue worked. And upsells and the PMS are going to be useful too. So if you're looking to do upsells, most people had a problem that it wasn't integrated in any of the technology. Maybe it was their OTA or the existing PMP that they're using. So that might be something to look out for yourself, is when you're trying to get a all-in-one solution that they have upsells, and they should, and most of them have it. So we discussed also the upsells pain point opportunities here. These are basically people's woes. So turnkey marketing solutions, concierge services, tours, and activities, and that's pretty obvious because there was a downtrend here from staff and closures. I'll eventually break off some of this information into separate videos. I mean, it's really useful, but I don't want to take too much time. I'm gonna make more focused videos, but it's a really great report, and I would recommend downloading it. And good luck to everybody in 2022. It should be a new, fresh, and exciting year. And take some of this data with you and see really what's working and what's not working, and look at people's challenges and pain points and use that to better your own business, because you're gonna be maybe facing those challenges if you're not already, and you can look at avoiding them, and the data here can show you a little bit more how to navigate those challenges and what is working to increase the bookings. It's focusing a little bit on upsells if you can. It's automation, guest communication is key, and that's going to be critical to the feedback that you get too, which is, better the feedback, higher your rating. Try to focus on some marketing, social media, and direct bookings. Okay, and stay tuned to my channel here, and we're gonna break some of these down in more details, and we're gonna try to help you out. And just to let you know, I have a blog on hostmatic.io, and we go into analytics and some marketing and try to help people to get a little bit of introduction into how to market their short-term rental, Airbnb, etc. So see you next time.